Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Monday, May 12th, and we are on the eve of one of the biggest commitments of this cycle. Tomorrow, Jackson Cantwell makes his decision, and you're right, we're going to have live coverage right here on the On3 Recruit channel, so this is a great time to hit subscribe because we got action. All right, so today is a great day also to talk recruiting with the most plugged-in expert on the planet, Steve Wiltfong. Let's bring him in. And we are starting the show with some major news. Actually, a major shift in Jackson Cantwell's recruitment. Steve, what is the latest that you're hearing?
Yeah, for the last couple of weeks, I've been feeling Georgia for the number one recruit out of Nixa, Missouri, who will announce his college decision on Tuesday during a ceremony at his school. But talking to numerous sources on Monday, I feel like Miami is very much right there. They were the leader at the end of April, and I could see him throwing up the U tomorrow and picking Miami over Georgia and over Oregon and the others with some of these late conversations that they are having with the Miami camp.
Well, that would be an incredible move for Miami, who is always hunting some of these five stars, but this one is special, number one recruit in the country. So if Miami starts the day tomorrow, ranked number 11, that's where they're at today, I assume going into tomorrow, they're still going to be at number 11. They're going to have a shot to, they're going to be knocking at the door of maybe a top 5 class. Who are some of the other top targets that Miami's in good shape for?
I think everything starts local for Miami. Typically, they want to own their area. The top prospects from South Florida, Derek Cooper and Calvin Russell, are guys that they are going to be all in on moving forward. And like we thought Georgia was trending for Jackson Cantwell the last couple of weeks, and perhaps he'll still end up being a dog. You got Georgia considered in pole position for Derek Cooper with Ohio State. And then with Calvin Russell, you got schools like LSU, Oregon, and Syracuse considered front runners. When Miami hits the gas on those guys, you certainly are not going to rule them out. CJ Hester is an in-state defensive back trending to Florida on the On3 RPM, but Miami is pushing hard there. Blake Stewart, a safety from Georgia, is a name that Miami's been very keen on much of the process. They've had him to campus and are in great position for him. They're battling Notre Dame for slot receiver Braden Robinson out of Texas, and they're still trying to flip Vance Spafford, a top 100 receiver from Mission Viejo, California, from Georgia. So they'd be looking for some more magic against the Bulldogs. Cannon Pickett's an in-state offensive lineman that I have predicted to Miami on the On3 RPM. I think that they'll still ultimately land him. And they're also recruiting Johnny Jones and Chancellor Campbell, a couple other in-state offensive tackles. They have Joel Irvin committed. They love him. Add Jackson Cantwell. That's as strong a tackle duo as you'll maybe find anywhere nationally. James Johnson and Lamar Brown are two touted defensive line targets that they're in the middle of it for. Same with Kendall Gervil, who recently named Texas's leader. But again, if Miami lands Jackson Cantwell and shows that they have the chops to get that done where it looked like it was trending away from them for a couple of weeks after they had the momentum at the end of spring, you're not ruling them out for any of those guys. I think the big one that they'd be trying to land moving forward after Jackson Cantwell that's out of region is Davon Benjamin, On3's number 2 ranked corner from California, out of Oaks Christian there. They had the big flip of Hayden Lowe last year in the 2025 class from there. They'll be looking for some more magic with Davon Benjamin, and they're in that top 2 or 3. Oregon's the RPM favorite right now, but Miami's in the middle of it. Georgia, Texas, USC, to name a few others.
Great stuff, Steve. This is going to be one exciting commitment tomorrow. Miami fans, talk to us. How are you feeling less than 24 hours out from number 1 Jackson Cantwell coming off the board? Let us know how you're feeling. Georgia's making a run at the number 1 class over the weekend. Number 6 safety Jordan Smith on Sunday committed to the Dogs, moving them up to number 6. Last week at this time, they were at number 17. So, Steve, we know there's momentum brewing. Who else is Georgia in good shape with right now?
Jordan Smith, another big pickup, Josh, number 75 player in the country per the On3 industry. He's the number 2 player in the class behind Jared Curtis right now as Georgia makes a run at its 10th straight top 3 recruiting class. They'll certainly be in the mix for number 1. They are in on as many 5 stars as any program in the land moving forward. Obviously, that starts with the number one player in the country, Jackson Cantwell, who will announce his commitment on Tuesday. The on-3 RPM favors the Bulldogs right now, including my prediction, but Miami and Oregon still heavily involved down the stretch in that one. Then you have the number one linebacker in the country, number one player in the state, Tyler Atkinson out of Loganville Grayson. Georgia is one of the front runners in that recruitment. I believe they have led at times for Tyler Atkinson. Where will that fall from an NIL standpoint? There's a lot of moving parts in that recruitment. Ohio State had several defensive coaches at Tyler Atkinson's house over the weekend. The Buckeyes are prominent in that one. Oregon is a major contender for Tyler Atkinson. Miami is in play, just to name a few others. They're in the final group for the number one running back in the country, Savion Hyder. He's going to take official visits to Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Tennessee. He's been to Athens a few times already. A couple other guys that Georgia is really swinging at right now. Five-star linebacker Xavier Griffin. He's the number 2 linebacker in the country. He's committed to USC, but I think Georgia is giving him a lot to think about. I think Georgia is at the top of the list or near the top for the number 3 running back in the country, Derek Cooper. I think they're in pole position for On3's number 1 ranked defensive lineman, James Johnson. They're certainly one of the front runners for the number 9 cornerback in the country, Justice Fitzpatrick. They're going to have a lot to say in the recruitments of legacy recruits Akini Ogboko on the offensive line and PJ Dean on the defensive line. And a couple of On3 RPMs I have out there for Georgia right now. You have On 300 athlete Ryan Mosley, South Carolina offensive lineman Malcolm Gaston. And I think that Georgia has the edge over Alabama right now for On 300 edge rusher Kamari Brooks. And Josh, one guy that Georgia's never going to stop recruiting till the end is On3's number 1 ranked linebacker in the country, Isaiah Williams. He recently committed to Ole Miss, but Coach Glenn Schumann and the Bulldogs will continue pushing for him, look to get him on campus this summer, play some games this fall, and see where the chips fall for a guy like Isaiah Williams.
Yeah, Isaiah Williams only made 5 commitments. I don't think he's anywhere near done with this site in this cycle, so we'll see if Georgia can pounce there. Hey, I think the Dogs have a great shot at number 1. You guys let us know, where do you think UGA finishes this cycle? It was a huge recruiting weekend out in Eugene, Oregon. The Ducks, they needed this. They get a 5-star commitment from defensive lineman Richard Wesley. He committed on Saturday with a video from Hayes Fawcett. Steve, take us behind the scenes of how the Ducks were able to pull in Wesley this weekend.
Well, this was his 5th visit to Eugene. He feels very comfortable around the Oregon program. In fact, feels like he's already part of the team the way the coaches and players treat him. He sees an opportunity to make an instant impact after Mateo Uiagalelei has another great season and moves on to the NFL. He believes, and Oregon has told him he could be a potential plug-and-play player at that position for the Ducks into fall. So the opportunity on the field, how comfortable Oregon has made them within the program, and then the level of ball they're playing, winning the Big Ten championship this past year and being number 1 most of the season. Richard Wesley got caught up in the excitement of his latest visit to campus, which included a scavenger hunt with Dan Lanning and company, and he jumped into the pool and into the fold with the Oregon Ducks. Now, they're still going to have to battle to keep him. He's going to take his official visit to Texas this summer, so the Longhorns will remain a program to watch. But I had an On3 RPM in favor of Oregon for Richard Wesley. Now he's committed. Everyone has known Oregon has been the leader in this recruitment. Is there a program that can change that moving forward? The Texas Longhorns are sure going to try.
Yeah, I feel real good about Wesley being committed to Oregon, but he has said that he's not shutting down that recruitment just yet, so we'll keep an eye on that, as you said. All right, 2 more 2026 names that we got to talk about. Wide receiver Messiah Hampton and DB Joey O'Brien were also on campus this weekend. Steve, what's the latest?
Well, this was Messiah Hampton's 3rd visit to Oregon this calendar year, and talking to his mom, Chelsea, this morning, she said they had to take this many visits because Oregon was kind of late to the party and they needed to catch up and get to know them as well as some of the other top schools. The one person they have known for a long time is Oregon's new wide receivers coach, Ross Douglas. He was recruiting him during his time at Syracuse, and that's been a seamless transition to Oregon. And since he's gotten to Oregon, Dan Lanning and the rest of the staff have really hit the gas on this recruitment. Oregon's offensive coordinator, Will Stein, was recently out at the school with Douglas. They feel very comfortable with the offense, the player development, the culture around the program. And his mother, and twin brothers had a fabulous time in Eugene over the weekend. I think Oregon is setting the pace in this recruitment moving forward. My On3 RPM reflects that after talking to Messiah's family and other sources regarding this recruitment. And so with that, I like where Oregon stands, but they're going to have to hold off places like Miami. Syracuse is still heavily involved. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Georgia, some of the other schools that the number one player in New York has a keen eye on.
All right. Tell us a little bit about Joey O'Brien's trip to Eugene.
Well, I talked to Joey O'Brien earlier this afternoon about his visit to Oregon, and kind of similar to a trip to Notre Dame earlier and a trip to Penn State. He says the Ducks have the momentum. He's looking forward to getting back for his official visit June 6th. Loved being around Tosh Lupoy and Coach Hampton, the facilities, the program, the trajectory. So we'll see, man. He's at Penn State this weekend for his official visit. He'll get back to Notre Dame, but Oregon is in the middle of that one for Joey O'Brien as well.
Let's talk a little Colorado recruiting after back-to-back big visit weekends in Boulder. This weekend, it was headlined by Alabama five-star wide receiver Darius Morgan. Steve, what are you hearing on his trip?
Well, talking to Darius Morgan after his visit on Sunday, he said they got a great shot. This was my first time being there. I really enjoyed it. You know, he talked about the offense, being able to play right away for coaches with an NFL track record. He talked about the scene in Boulder, being from the South, never being in the mountains like that before. He had a great time at Colorado this weekend. Alabama is obviously where my On3 RPM is. You got Auburn, Florida, Georgia, some of the other programs that are squarely in the mix for Darius Morgan, but Colorado is recruiting him as a coveted target, and they gave him a lot to think about coming out of this visit.
All right, Steve, let's move on and talk about flip target Vance Spafford. This is an interesting one because as much as we talk about Georgia's recruiting momentum, you got wide receiver Vance Spafford out here taking visits, namely this weekend to Colorado. What's the latest?
Well, he said he had an amazing time, that it was incredible. He loved everything about it, how they play their freshmen, and he thinks it'd be an amazing opportunity to play for Colorado. And he said they're a top contender now. Now, Georgia, them landing Jared Curtis, that's an inch that helps them moving forward and keeping Vance Spafford in the fold. We talked about that this weekend. You got Miami in the middle of this recruitment, Washington, who is an undercover sneaky program to follow on the recruiting trail here in the 2026 cycle. But Colorado getting Vance Spafford on campus this weekend, being able to show an offense that was prolific in the passing game this fall, same with Darius Morgan, was exciting to those two top 100 pass catchers.
All right. There's a couple other big names on campus this weekend. What else you got for us?
Yeah, IMG Academy 4-star linebacker DQ Forkpa says that Colorado is in his top 3 moving forward. Talked about all the things he can learn and implement into his game, just how at home he felt with the coaching staff and all the NFL scouts that float around that program. He really enjoyed learning more about Colorado. Colorado has been one of the favorites for Dorian Barney. He's a 4-star cornerback from Carrollton, Georgia. I'm not sure there's a player higher on the board for Colorado in 2026 for Dorian Barney. That's how much Deion Sanders and his staff covet him. He said the experience was amazing and that the fan base out there was crazy. And he talked about playing for legends and coaches that did it at a high level. IMG Academy offensive lineman Genevieve Carr took his visit out there, had an amazing time. Julius Miles is an exciting high upside tight end from the state of Florida that said Colorado skyrocketed in his recruitment. They said, come to Colorado, be a first rounder, be an All-American. That resonated with him. Frisco, Panther Creek, Texas, 4-star defensive back Donovan Webb tells me Colorado's in his top 3 moving forward as they battle Big Ten powerhouse programs like Ohio State and Michigan moving forward for him.
All right. Sounds like it was a big weekend for the Buffs. Let's talk a little blue chip buzz and start with the number 1 linebacker in the country, Tyler Atkinson. It's been a busy month for him. Coaches are on the road. What's the latest with Atkinson?
Well, as you guys know, Georgia was the program that looked like they had the momentum going into the spring for the number one ranked linebacker recruit out of Loganville Grayson. And he still has a lot of love for Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and that program and the way they produce linebackers, the way they play defense, and the way they hunt championships year in and year out. But he is not a foregone conclusion to end up at Georgia. Ohio State is very real in this one. They sent several coaches to his house on Saturday. Defensive coordinator Matt Patricia, former All-American linebacker, former pro James Laurinaitis was down there, and so was longtime recruiter Tim Walton, who also played at Ohio State and, like Laurinaitis, played in the NFL. I think Ohio State's in a really good position for Tyler Atkinson. I think Oregon's a school of intrigue there. You got Miami in the mix, just to name a couple others. But this recruitment is really tightened up. Official visits are going to be big. Clemson's in there for Tyler Atkinson too. So it'll be interesting to see how the summer shapes this recruitment. But Ohio State is the program alongside Georgia that I am really watching right now moving forward for the number one linebacker in the land.
All right, on 3 5-star edge Carter Meadows has dozens of offers, but this weekend he took a buzzsaw to that list of offers down to just 4. Steve, tell us about it.
Yeah, he's going to take his official visits to Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and South Carolina. Those are the 4 programs he settled in on for what they can offer on and off the field. And going into those visits, I'm not sure I could name a front runner. I think that he looks forward to getting around the players in those locker rooms and seeing how he fits from a culture standpoint. But those 4 programs so far have done a tremendous job recruiting On3's number 6 prospect overall.
All right, and just before we came to tape this show, you put in a massive prediction for interior offensive lineman Darius Gray, the 5-star. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the land per the On3 industry. Look, he's already taken official visits to Virginia and Virginia Tech. He's going to be at Georgia this weekend, and there's several other top contenders alongside LSU. You have Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, South Carolina, and Tennessee. I think LSU and South Carolina are the top 2 for a long time. I've liked where the Gamecocks stood in this one, but my intel now currently favors LSU. So with that, my On3 RPM reflects that. Offensive coordinator Joe Sloan is visiting Darius Gray today per Bengal Tigers Shea Dixon. I know these official visits are going to be big, but LSU's been a dream school of his. Brad Davis, offensive line coach, he's really connected with. LSU's track record on the offensive line recently under Brian Kelly, and then what he's done historically at the position really speaks to him. So I think LSU's got a lot going for it in this recruitment of Darius Gray. They have the number 2 class in the country. He would be pivotal as they try and finish number 1.
All right. One last prospect we got to hit on is a top 10 running back that's going to be making his decision right here on the On3 Recruits channel on Wednesday. We're talking Jonaz Walton. What is the latest buzz? As we're just about 2 days from his commitment. On3's
number 6 ranked running back. He's got 10.6 speed in the 100-meter dash. He is an explosive, prolific rusher of the football that looked strongly at the likes of Alabama, Florida, Stanford, Notre Dame, Tennessee during his process. And I like where the Irish stand after 2 visits to South Bend this calendar year. How he's been able to connect with Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's head coach, the way the running game is taken. 3, 2, 1. The way they emphasize the running game in South Bend, and Jeremiah Love being one of the front runners for the Doak Walker Award coming into this football season this fall. What Notre Dame offers off the field, I think it checks all the boxes for Jonaz Walton. I think that Notre Dame leads going into his announcement. The Irish have On3's number 4 ranked recruiting class going into that ceremony. And that'll do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits page so you're up to date on the best recruiting information on the web. We will be back on this channel for Jackson Cantwell's announcement on Tuesday, so you'll want to stop in. As Josh said, we have Jonaz Walton on Thursday. And this is all coming on the heels of Jordan Thomas, who announced with us earlier today